The night had that crisp, almost magical energy that New Year's Eve always carries. The streets were alive with laughter, fireworks sparking in the distance, and I was dressed in my best. Heels clicking against the marble floor, champagne flute in hand, heart hovering somewhere between hope and nerves. I had convinced myself this dinner might finally be different. Maybe, just maybe, my mother would act like she cared, my brother wouldn't try to humiliate me in front of everyone, and I could leave feeling normal. Then, almost immediately, that hope was crushed. As soon as I slid into the seat across from her, her eyes flicked up and whispered, so quietly I thought I misheard, "We only invited you out of pity. Don't stay too long." The words cut sharper than any knife, and I could feel the laughter before it even came. The quiet snickers, the shifting of chairs, the anticipatory smirks, and of course my brother, always waiting for the perfect moment, leaned over with that smug grin and said loud enough for the table to hear, "Well, look who made it, the failure of the family." My cheeks burned, my fingers tightened around the stem of my glass. Around me, the table erupted. Cousins chuckling, aunts whispering, my mother smiling that sickly proud smile as if she'd orchestrated a flawless performance. In that instant, time seemed to stretch. The laughter blurred into a low hum, and the room felt like it had shrunken around me. I thought about storming out, slamming the door, yelling until my voice broke, but something inside me paused. Something told me that their idea of victory wasn't the real story anymore. That their cruelty, their satisfaction, could be flipped. That, just maybe, this humiliation could plant the seeds for something far bigger. I took a slow, deliberate sip of champagne, feeling the bubbles prick my tongue, and then I did the one thing they didn't expect. I smiled. Not the kind of nervous, polite smile that begged for approval, but a calm, steady smile. One that said, without words, "I am not yours to break." I rose from the chair with a grace they weren't ready for. No tears, no yelling, no dramatic collapse into the coatroom corner. I simply set my glass down, smoothed my dress, and walked out. Their laughter followed me like a shadow, echoing through the doorway, and I could almost hear the thought in their heads. She's weak. She's running away. She's broken. They couldn't have been more wrong, because here's the thing they didn't know. 1 week later, the cozy little family cabin they bragged about, the one they planned their next vacation around, the one they thought symbolized their control and comfort, it would be gone. Every bit of it. And they wouldn't even see it coming. If you stay with me until the end, I'll tell you exactly how one New Year's Eve dinner, one cruel set of words whispered in my face, turned into a week where their money, their comfort, and their smug sense of superiority evaporated. You're about to see what happens when the person they thought was fragile learns how to play the game on their own terms. And trust me, it's nothing like they expected, so take a deep breath and buckle up. This isn't just a story about family drama. This is about revenge. About quiet power. About turning the table on the people who thought they had you figured out. And it all starts with that one New Year's Eve, the night they laughed at me. And the night I decided I wasn't done yet. Exactly 1 week later, my phone started going insane. Insane. Calls, texts, notifications. All of them screaming for attention at once. My mom, my dad, my brother. All of them. The relentless pinging was almost cinematic, if it weren't so deliciously satisfying. Emails poured in, urgent, account changes, action required, unauthorized access, notice, payment failed. And yet I did nothing. Let them stew. Let the panic rise. Jenna, my roommate, my quiet accomplice in chaos, smiled from the couch and let them all go to voicemail. Power shift, officially in motion. It was my mother who called first, and the moment I answered, her voice was pure hysteria. What did you do?" she stammered, almost screaming. "The cabin, it's gone. Strangers are at Lake Chelan. Your name is all over the paperwork." I sipped my coffee slowly, letting her panic ripple through the phone. Behind her, I could hear my father barking in frustration, papers shuffling, doors slamming. Bank accounts closed. Automatic payments bounced. Late fees accumulating. And the cherry on top. She had no idea how it had happened, though I did. Then came my brother. Entitled, infuriated, and completely unhinged. "You tanked my credit score. My summer plans are ruined." Texts poured in one after another. All because you couldn't handle one harmless joke at dinner. Harmless joke. I laughed out loud, and this time it wasn't nervous laughter. It was real, victorious laughter. The kind that only comes when someone finally learns what it feels like to face the consequences of their own arrogance. I thought back to that night, to the moment it all started. The detective work, the digging through my own life, the realization that empowerment had been lying in plain sight all along. Walking home alone that evening, my hands shaking not from fear but from anticipation, I opened my laptop in my tiny apartment, furnished with thrift store finds, nothing fancy, just functional, and started sifting. Old emails, documents, screenshots. Then the worn folder I had stuffed into the closet years ago. Every note, every PDF, every little, just sign this. It's no big deal message they had sent me page by page, the truth unfolded. The cabin at Lake Chelan. Not some tax thing my parents claimed, it was mine. My name on the deed, my ownership, their assumption that I would never notice. Ryan's emergency credit line. I was co-applicant the whole time. The so-called joint account to help build my credit. Every vacation, every purchase, every indulgence they boasted about had secretly relied on my financial safety net. Page after page I realized. I had been the backbone of their convenience, their comfort, their entitlement. And that's when the plan formed. No hesitation, no second-guessing. I grabbed a pen and my notebook, the same one I had carried since college, and wrote 3 words across the top of the page. Take it back. Then I started listing everything. Everything they had taken for granted, everything they assumed I would silently support. The cabin, every joint account, every loan, every bill. He paused and thought of Maya, my lawyer friend, the one who always said, "You have the power, you just don't always see it." And suddenly I did. The pieces clicked. The emails, the statements, the forgotten signatures. They weren't just mistakes. They were tools waiting for me to use. Present day, the notebook sits open in front of me. The first 3 items crossed out, actions executed, consequences unfolding. The satisfaction is almost cinematic, almost surreal. They thought I would swallow it like I always did. That I would smile politely, nod, and let their arrogance slide. Instead, 1 week later, they were finally tasting the bitterness of their own signatures. Finally understanding the chaos they had built for themselves. And all because I decided that humiliation at dinner would not be my last word. The first step was obvious. I needed someone who actually understood the rules of this game. Someone who could see through the mess of family lies and legal loopholes and turn it into a plan I could execute without tripping myself up. That someone was Maya. I dialed her number, fingers trembling not from fear but from anticipation. The video call connected, and there she was. Hoodie, messy bun, coffee in hand, looking exactly like she didn't care about anyone else's chaos. Then her smile faltered the moment she saw me on screen, dressed and composed after surviving the dinner humiliation. "Jenna," she said slowly, frowning. "What the hell happened?" And I told her everything. The whispered insults, my brother's public mockery, the entire New Year's Eve scene, the folder of documents, the screenshots, the emails. Every detail, every manipulation I discovered, I laid it out on the screen. Maya leaned in closer, squinting at the small apartment laptop screen. Wait, you're telling me this? All these documents, you actually read them?" "Yes," I said, voice calm. And I realized something. I wasn't just being humiliated that night. I was being used. Financially, legally, everything. She cursed under her breath, shaking her head as she scrolled through the cabin deed. "Jenna, you're not co-owner. Wait, owner. Owner. That's your cabin. Not theirs. Owner." Next came the joint credit line. Maya's brow furrowed as she shared her screen, scrolling through flight confirmations, hotel bookings, luxury upgrades, all charged under my social security number. "And this," she muttered, "isn't for taxes, isn't for family convenience. They've been living off you. Every trip, every expense." It was a mixture of fury and satisfaction hearing her lay it out. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was concrete, undeniable, and actionable. Maya shifted into lawyer mode. The hoodie vanished, replaced by laser focus and authority. "Here's what we're going to do. We're not going to blow up your life just to get even. We're going to follow the paper trail, and we're going to do it clean. Step by step. No mistakes. No emotional slip-ups. I grabbed my notebook and began taking notes like a diligent client. Legal rights, potential obstacles, timing, signatures, buyers. Every instruction she gave became a line, an arrow, a bullet point. Then came the nuclear option, the cabin. Maya hesitated, which immediately told me everything I needed to know. There are cash buyers lined up already, she said quietly. Tech world types. Fast, clean, no drama. If you really want out, I can call them tomorrow. Legally. Not much your parents can do if the deed says what I think it says. My chest tightened. Summers with grandparents flashed before me. Quiet mornings by the lake, the smell of pine and firewood. My parents using it for perfect family photos, always posting online, always excluding me. Selling it felt like slicing away the only soft memory I had with them. But leaving it in their hands felt like letting them continue to profit from the life I'd unknowingly supported. Maya seemed to read my hesitation. Sometimes, she said gently, the only way people like that stop is when consequences finally land on their own doorstep. I nodded, pushing past the emotion. Step by step, I let her lay out the plan like a recipe. Prep the cabin sale, lock the closing date, contact banks to close joint accounts, document everything meticulously. My notebook exploded with arrows and check marks, every task connecting to another. I circled the word mine 3 times across the cabin section, letting the pen anchor my resolve. We went through every scenario. Delays, objections, potential interference. Maya reassured me. You're not stealing from them, Jenna. You're taking your own name back. Pause. Silence stretched between us as I let her words sink in. This wasn't just revenge. It was reclaiming what was already mine, finally aligning justice with reality. Then I made the call. Let's see how fast they can move, I said, almost smiling, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Maya's face softened, approving, confident. Good. That's the commitment. Point of no return. And just like that, the team was assembled. The strategy was set. The pieces were moving across the board. And for the first time, I felt the power shift entirely into my hands. By the time the buyers texted me that afternoon, I felt a mixture of nerves and anticipation that was almost electric. They were exactly who my parents would have approved of. A polished couple in their mid-30s, perfectly enthusiastic about summers on the lake, already imagining the perfect decor, the family barbecues, the photo ops. I forced a polite smile through the video call, while inside, my chest tightened. And then, just as I suspected, my mother's voice floated into my memory. We only invited you out of pity. That word, a soft, dismissive jab, hit me like a physical nudge. But now the situation had shifted. This wasn't about her pity anymore. It was about me taking control, about the cabin, the accounts, the years of silent servitude finally tilting in my favor. I watched the buyer's hungry eyes scan the paperwork, their subtle excitement confirming the deal's allure. This was real. My parents had no idea this moment was happening. Maya guided me through the signing with calm authority. Here, she said, pointing at the line in the deed, is where you acknowledge you are the sole owner. My hand shook slightly as I picked up the pen. Every letter felt like a tiny rebellion, each stroke of ink a symbolic severing of years of control and manipulation. When I finally laid the pen down, Maya's voice cut through my lingering nerves. No longer theirs to control. Your decision, your sale. I exhaled, a mixture of relief and exhilaration flooding through me. The cabin, our summers, their bragging rights, their sense of superiority, was officially on its way to strangers who didn't know my parents' names and couldn't care less about their entitlement. Next came the accounts. First, the family credit card. The bank representative sounded shocked when I explained I was the primary holder. Wait, you're the primary holder. And they were just authorized users. It was like pulling teeth, uncovering yet another layer of lies they had used to claim control. I closed the account despite the balance needing payment, making sure every authorized user would receive notification. Each phone call, each transaction confirmation felt like a small victory, A meticulous, satisfying slap of justice. Then came Ryan's golden child credit line. The banker confirmed what I already knew. I was co-applicant, fully responsible for every misuse. Apparently, Ryan had been treating it like a revolving door. Flights, hotels, last-minute upgrades. With Maya's legal phrasing, the account was frozen, my name officially removed from future liability. His pushback was almost comical, like a spoiled child realizing their favorite toy was gone. Maya's calm authority cut through every protest point one by one. I worked through the rest of the list. Every utility bill under my Social Security, every backup checking account, every overlooked payment. I documented everything meticulously. Call logs, emails, screenshots. Every confirmation felt like a small dismantling of the empire they had built on my back. Step by step, I was reclaiming my identity and my freedom. First, the process felt almost petty, like ticking boxes on revenge. But by the time I reached the halfway mark, it transformed into validation. The notebook in front of me wasn't just a list. It was proof. Proof I hadn't been crazy. Proof that my parents had quietly wired their financial security to my identity without acknowledgement. Proof that every sigh, every pity invite, every subtle humiliation had been underpinned by tangible leverage. And I was finally reclaiming it. By the time the sun faded to gray over Seattle, my first 3 items were crossed out. Cabin sold, accounts closed, Ryan's credit line neutralized. In some parallel universe, my parents were probably comfortable, calling me dramatic, convinced I'd do nothing. In this universe, the consequences of their entitlement were unfolding in real time. And for the first time, the feeling of control settled fully on my shoulders. All I had done was sign my own name. One simple word followed it. No more control. No more silent compliance. No more letting them dictate my worth through petty insults or financial manipulation. And in that quiet evening, with the gray light falling through the blinds, I realized how intoxicating this clarity was. Not revenge for its own sake, but justice delivered with precision, competence, and dignity. Each document signed, each account closed, each line of proof captured in screenshots, was a step toward freedom I had never known I could feel so fully. I leaned back, staring at the notebook, seeing the arrows, the bullets, the circled words. Everything that had once been used to manipulate me was now guiding me to my liberation. One word, one signature, and years of silent burden were lifted. 2 days after the cabin sale post went live on Facebook, Ryan was pounding on my door like a man possessed. His face red, veins visible on his neck. He yelled about nuked credit, and a lost client deal he swore would have cemented his career. He looked around my tiny apartment with thinly veiled judgment, arms crossed, sneering. "You're overreacting," he spat. "Dad had it all managed." I let him fume, letting every word hang in the air before I finally responded. When he claimed this was all for the family's benefit, that's what families do, I pointed at my cluttered living space and spat back. "Do you see a cabin here? All I see are bills with my name on them. The tiny apartment, the stacks of invoices, the evidence of years of unpaid labor disguised as family support. It was my breaking point. 2 hours later, Dad arrived, perfectly pressed shirt, calm mask firmly in place. He took the chair like it was his by default and launched into his measured negotiation tactics. I didn't flinch. I presented Harold's documentation, every screenshot, every statement, every confirmation he had been unable to refute. The patriarch realized mid-sentence that his ally had turned witness. The power he thought he held was slipping through his fingers. And then came the reputation defense, predictable as clockwork. "Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to build our reputation?" he asked, eyes darting nervously. Facebook posts had already triggered questions. "What do you want? Money? An apology?" I let him breathe for a moment, then calmly said what he could never compute. "Everything has a price tag to you. I just want my accounts fixed, my estate plan corrected, and to be officially out of the financial family." The shift was complete. Dad sputtered. "You can't just opt out of family." I smiled, pulling my phone from my pocket to show a preview of Mom's texts about buyers and follow-up questions. You already did, I said. You opted me out when you invited me to dinner just so you could laugh. The weight of reality hit him. He looked older, smaller somehow, and left with only a veiled threat about his options. Mom called 3 times that evening. First, furious, accusing me of betrayal. Second, sobbing about ruined traditions. Third, a small, raw voice admitting that even the church friends were seeing the post and maybe we'd gone too far. I played each voicemail once, set the phone down, and finally understood. For years, their feelings had been the weather in our house. Now, the storm was theirs. And beneath the panic, the anger, the guilt, the threats, one simple truth emerged. Without my name quietly propping up their perfect life, they were going to have to stand on their own. For the first time, the control, the responsibility, the consequences, they belonged to them. And I could finally breathe. The consequences didn't hit all at once. They crept in quietly, almost like the tide reclaiming what had been taken from it. Harold's call was the first confirmation. Approvals on the estate plan, reflecting my grandparents' actual wishes. Every document carefully updated. Every paper trail protecting both Harold and me. For the first time, the rules were on my side. The money from the cabin trickled into my life in practical ways. Debts cleared, taxes set aside, a modest studio lease signed. My first space that was truly mine. No shared accounts, no strings, no judgment. Just freedom measured in square feet, sunlight, and the relief of knowing the work was finally entirely mine. Meanwhile, my family was adjusting to a new reality. Ryan downsized from his sleek condo to a cramped townhouse, losing clients and perks he had assumed were untouchable. Mom's social media tone softened, cautious, careful, scanning every post before she hit publish. Eventually, she requested a neutral coffee shop meeting. Small olive branch, but a step toward accountability. That meeting was surreal. Mom looked smaller. Her real apology was nothing like the usual scripted lines. "I'm sorry if you felt hurt."
Well,
She admitted she'd disguised control as help, recognized that she'd leaned on my compliance for years. I didn't rush to comfort her. I set boundaries. No joint accounts, no favors, no punchlines at my expense. Dad never said sorry. He admitted he'd assumed I'd never push back. "You never cared about money," he said, with the confidence of someone who had always mistaken compliance for indifference. But there's a distinction. Not caring about money is not equal to not caring about being lied to or manipulated. The conversation was awkward, incomplete, yet boundaries were drawn. I was no longer the family's silent safety net. And that's the universal lesson here. Being related to someone doesn't mean you owe them your credit score, your savings, or your silence. Reading the fine print isn't ungrateful. Saying no when everyone expects yes isn't disloyal. You are not a safety net, and you are not a punchline. You have permission to outgrow the roles assigned to you, to reclaim your name, your space, and your dignity. Oh, here's the final hook. This isn't legal advice, it's solidarity. You are allowed to take your name back. You are allowed to say no, to set boundaries, to put yourself first. And if you're sitting there, holding your own set of invisible receipts, keeping your self-respect, I want you to know you're not alone in picking.